At best, the alien abduction phenomenon is a terrifying, traumatic experience. At its worst, well, we think they sometimes take people and don't put them back.
I lost my mother and brother to this trauma. He murdered her, then killed himself.
These women are being used as human incubators, with all their children stolen away into the night.
A 6-foot-tall entity of blue-white light paralyzed me, then bent down and said into my ear, "Hi, Steve." It knew my name.
We hear gruesome stories of experiments and dissections. Imagine dying on a metal table while paralyzed, surrounded by alien faces. It's a real horror story. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our show, Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw.
Hi, I'm Stephen Shaw.
And tonight we're going to talk about Stephen's third UFO. Stephen's seen 5 total, but this is his third incident.
Yes, this is in the spring of 2005, about 8:39 in the morning. I was driving into work, coming down the Yucca Pass, and I saw this large cigar-shaped silvery object that was just hovering in the sky over mid-Yucca Valley. And I happened to listen to the radio, and the DJ at the time saying, "Are you guys seeing this?" And it was obviously not a blimp or an airplane or a helicopter. And I, unfortunately, I was a little bit late for work, so I couldn't, just, pull over and take a picture. But it was obviously a silver cigar-shaped UFO, and actually quite a number of people saw it. This was in 2005, just to remind people.
Well, thanks, Steve, for sharing that, Stephen. And in a few moments, we'll introduce our wonderful guest tonight. We have a real special treat for you tonight. Our guest is abductee Karin Wilkinson.
Yes.
So we'll be right back.
Leslie, you're kidding me.
What?
Our merchandise store is up?
Of course, my darling. All of our amazing concepts of shirts, mugs, and bumper stickers are ready to go.
No way.
Way.
Even my brilliant Egyptian concept that no one else ever thought of before?
Yes, that one too, and lots more. All at our new store at etsy.com/shop/abductions101.
Wow. I want a shirt and a mug and...
Well, Stephen, and all our curious listeners, just go to etsy.com/shop/abductions101 to see all of our unique designs.
I'm going there.
Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode of our show, Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection. I'm your host, Leslie Shaw, and my husband.
Yeah, Stephen Shaw.
Welcome back to our show. We are the authors of the UFO book, Who They Are and What They're Up To. And we're particularly excited for today's interview because we have a fellow abductee
and author.
And fellow author, right? UFO book author with us tonight. And let me introduce Karin Wilkinson, author of Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest.
Hi, how are you? I'm so honored and grateful to be here with both of you tonight. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm fascinated.
Nice to have you with us.
I cannot wait to read your book. I'm so excited for us to exchange books because your book sounds fascinating, and I am so excited to get the opportunity to read it, and more excited to have the opportunity here to talk with you tonight. So thank you again.
I'm excited to hear your side. You say you have kind of a Christian bent on the entire
interpretation
on the and that that ties in with a lot of our study as well.
There's a crossover for sure.
Yeah. So we're really excited to hear more about that. But Karin provided us a questions list, which I love because that takes care of about half my work right there. And one of them in particular I did want to get to here. Let's see. Your book recounts some shocking and disturbing events in your life. How did you happen to survive all of that? We had a family member that committed suicide, so we
committed murder and a suicide.
Suicide. So it doesn't always work out well, that's for sure.
No, it doesn't, because the emotional burden of being an experiencer of some of these things can be so incredibly great that for some people it's more than they can bear. And I understand that. I mean, I've spoken with hundreds of other fellow abductees and experiencers, and we talk about this quite a bit when we're together. And, for me, there came a choice. There were times in my life where it was almost too much to bear. And I understand that level of angst that people can have. For me, my faith really pulled me through. And that, along with finding others with the same connections who had gone through similar experiences, between those two things, and being able to write what happened to me, was very cathartic to write it down, and finding the courage to share it, because there's such a huge stigma out there to anyone who says, I've been taken, I've been abducted. The stigma is, oh, you're a crazy person. But then you come to find out that most people don't actually think that way. That's something we've been trained to think, but it's not there. And so, my faith was the number one thing, and just being able to find prayer through that. And when I was little, how I got through it was just by dissociating. I learned how to separate myself from what was going on. And I think that's why I remember as much as I do of what happened, because I just separated. I went somewhere else in my mind and did not engage. And for me, when you're not engaging with them, it's very hard for them to really plug into your neural pathways the same way, and to get into your thoughts the same way, because you create this block, and there's like a part of you that they just can't get to.
And this appearance of poise and comportment, and
well,
on the outside,
I'm
right?
curious. Like when you're young, is there like a certain aspect of like denial, and therefore like you're not letting them into to affect you, because you're basically saying you're putting a block up there, you're denying that it happened, or you're just saying that it happened and you're just basically accepting it, but you're not letting them have power.
Exactly. It's a little bit of both. And I think it depends on, where and how I was feeling at the time, how vulnerable I was feeling at the time, how horrific what was happening was at the time, how invasive it was. If it was a simple experience where they were maybe just doing some minor tests on me, but then some things they did were very invasive. And, I was naked and I was vulnerable and I was uncomfortable or in pain. And so in some of them, I just completely flat out denied in my head, this is not happening. This is not happening. And I would envision myself somewhere else, somewhere pleasant.
Could you give our audience like roughly a time frame in which that you have the most memories of this combination of denial and, sort of acceptance? And
right. I started doing that around 5 or 6 years old, because I kind of had a breakdown at that point where I realized every time I tried to talk about it or share my story with someone, it was met with resistance. It was, you had a bad dream, or we don't understand what you're saying. And, I didn't have a vocabulary to say they're aliens, they're grays, they're UFOs, they're UAPs. But I didn't have that vocabulary.
Right.
The little ones are coming in my room. They're taking me out through a window. They're hurting me. They're scaring me, and trying to explain the things that were happening and things that were beyond my mental understanding as well. So not being able to get anyone to listen, and then being threatened that you have to stop talking, them telling me you can't talk about this or will harm the people you love, those types of threats, that threw me into a state of feeling that there was just nothing I could do, feeling hopeless. There was an event when I was about 5 or 6 years old. They found me huddled in the corner of a bathroom stall at school. I wouldn't come out. I wouldn't talk to anyone. I was just holding my knees and rocking. They got my mother to come. My mom got me out of the bathroom stall, and I just kept saying, I don't want them to take me. I don't want them to touch me. Who are they? Them, the little ones, are these kids at school? No, they must be kids at school. I can't imagine who else she's talking about. She took me to the doctor. They gave me an exam. He's like, well, whatever happened, she's young. She'll forget. And that's kind of when I think I really just cracked into two and just said, I'm going to live here in my day-to-day life. And then when they take me, I'm going to go over here into this safe, quiet place that I created in my mind. And
I believe that's not an uncommon method for coping with
well,
trauma.
for more
right?
intelligent people, yes.
In fact, you were lucky you didn't become a split personality, where one doesn't remember, doesn't even know the other one's there.
At
really,
that point in your life, you said the little ones, were they roughly your size, and also did they communicate with you just telepathically?
Right. They were about my size. There was a point in time when they were bigger than me, but they were smaller than people. So they they looked like the size of bigger kids, but they
like
didn't look
4.5,
like
5 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like the small one.
The kind of cookie cutter grays that would just do all the grunt work. And then when I would be to wherever they were taking me, the other grays were taller, different heights. Some seemed feminine, although they didn't have feminine body structure. Some clearly had just a feminine air about them. It's so hard to explain.
The aura feminine. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. And some were more masculine. Some seemed older, wiser. Some seemed younger, but these little grays were all the same. And so those were the little ones that I was referring to.
Yeah, we call them the minions these days, right?
Yeah, right. We call them the meat suits. Is one thing we call them too.
Oh, so sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you get around the memory tampering? In Steve's family's case, they kept having these big blackouts of time, big blackouts of their memory. And we've had trouble breaking through them, frankly, in Steve's case. The block is just too firmly in place in his case. But I was wondering how you came to realize and remember.
Well, I always remembered what I do remember. I mean, those memories just were always there, but there are black places, there are blank spaces where I don't remember. And then there are memories that are just right here on the edge, and I don't allow them to come through because they're very traumatic. And I don't think it's going to help myself or anyone else to share those types of memories because they're just really traumatic. And I personally have not yet felt the need to allow myself to fully remember them. I remember them, but I'm not allowing myself to relive them, let's put it that way.
You haven't been regressed, in other words, hypnotically.
Right, have not been regressed, no. And I think I have the memories I do because of once I finally was able to separate and create that disassociation without completely splitting, but I was definitely disassociating. That allowed me, to, when they were trying to, connect into me, they look right in your eyes and they really try to connect into you. I'm taking them to a nice meadow somewhere where I am relaxing, or I'm on my grandparents' farm, walking around by the creek and looking for crawdads and things that I liked to do when I was little, instead of looking around at what's around me. That's what they're interfacing with. But I'm also still aware of what's going on around me. So I think that's how I was able to retain some of the memories.
Yeah, you remember a lot more than I think than in Stephen's case, for instance,
Yeah, and I've noticed that it's different for everyone. Everyone has different levels of memory, and some of these entities are really good at getting in your brain, and some of them weren't. The same as some of us are better at other things. So, there are times when I think I would be with one who could just really focus in on my psyche, and I was blank. So I think it's different for everyone. But I do notice the people I've spoken with who have memories similar to mine, have as much memory. We're also dissociating from a very early age. So we kind of it's almost like something we learned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So when your young brain figures that out, your neural passages are just starting to develop, and it creates more of a permanent ability to separate. When that happens and you're older, you've already developed all these neural pathways and things. So I think I'm not an expert in that. So, but, I certainly think that has something to do with it, just based on the people I've spoken with, and that's just an informal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. My first experiences was at the age of 3, where I would be visited in the middle of the night by this 2-legged being that would jump on my chest and my stomach kind of playfully, and it was there, but it was, it was invisible. And I understand, I've studied the brain a lot, and it depends on with the thalamus and the hypothalamus when it lays down the pathways, associated with emotion. Our deepest memories are associated. They're laid down with both emotion and with the intellect and what you're actually experiencing. That's why you can retain they're like super highways. When you're young, you can lay down a super highway versus a deer track, as far as a memory. Like when you're an adult now, it's like you can't even remember like what you had for breakfast the day before because you're just barely etching on, like a deer pathway. But if you have strong emotions associated with it, with a young
trauma,
brain, with a young brain, whether good or bad, it lays down the super highway almost immediately. So it's deeply etched. And so these different areas of the brain, they associate, whether it's the left or the right hemisphere. And the more, let's say, ambidextrous people tend to be closer to the genius level because they're using more of both sides of the brain. They're not like they're not like unilobal, so they're bilobal.
I didn't know that.
What are your first memories of it happening? I'm sorry, I interrupted again.
Oh no,
I'm
just
not
saying,
hearing you perfectly well.
No, I'm sorry. We might have a delay too. That always seems.
I think that's it.
Yeah. I am fairly ambidextrous, so that's interesting. I wonder if that has something to do with it too. That's really interesting information, Stephen. I didn't know any of that.
Me too. I'm very ambidextrous.
Very, yeah.
Wow. And maybe that's one of the traits they look for as well, when they're taking people. So
there's two areas of the brain actually in the book. One of the books I'm reading, Imminent by Luis Elizondo. There's two areas of the brain. There's called the parahippocampal gyrus and the caudate putamen. There are two areas of the brain that are overly developed or more developed in people that have psychic abilities or have remote viewing abilities or have ESP or have interaction.
And they found with brain scans of abductees that they have the same kind of brains. And
right, exactly.
That made a lot of sense to us.
We've always thought that.
Because Steve comes from an incredibly psychic family.
Yeah.
And we think the abduction phenomenon was going on in the whole family back multi-generations.
About 4 generations.
Did you find that to be the case?
Absolutely. Yes, they did. And we're also a very psychic, very psychic family as well, too. And I didn't understand that growing up, how I would just know, things and it was so, I didn't understand what that meant. I just thought everyone was like that, but yeah, I did find that it definitely went back generations in our family.
Did you find that you could ask for help, and then especially as a kid, I need to find something or need to do something, and then if you asked in earnest, you would actually you'd find it or get the answer.
Yeah. See where it was, or
me too.
To where it was, without,
me too.
And it just, yeah, exactly. Or I really need to hear from this person, and the phone would ring, and there's that person, and and it was, there were a lot of things like that, and
I did that all throughout my until recently in my adulthood. I would think about a person, I would know that I'd be getting a call from them or a contact like 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 days in advance.
That still happens. Yeah, same here. It still happens. And like, I'll call someone up. You've been on my heart. What's going on? And they're like, how do you always know when I need to hear from you? And I think we have those connections, and I think some of that is just, just the way God built the universe. I mean, I think there's just so much beauty in the world that gets overlooked, and I think love is one of those things. And that love that connects some of us, and I think that's just such a amazing part of things. So for all the, we talk about a lot of dark things, but especially in the book, I try to talk about a lot of the light too, and a lot of the good things that have happened.
Right.
What great advice you have for surviving this phenomenon. It's get a support group.
Yeah,
get support, find help. Help people who understand.
A lot of people have problems like reaching out, and it's true. Like even I do too. It's just like it's just. I grew up in a family that we knew about the stuff. We called our spirit guide Oglegli, that, quote unquote Oglegli, that had been following the family for, 4 different bloodlines for 4 generations, from Germany to England to California.
And then you were talking about your handler as,
right.
Is also a tall gray?
No, well, he was reptilian, and he looked reptilian. And, it's so hard to, in my description is reptilian because he had what almost looked like scaly skin, but not scales like when you think of a lizard. It's so different because it's still smooth skin, but it has the appearance of a scaled texture.
Kind of dinosaur-like skin or something like.
Almost, but it wasn't rough. It wasn't like rough and gross or anything like that. And it was almost opalescent, and it just kind of
opalescent.
Yeah, and it just kind of shimmered. And
Okay.
when he showed he appeared as a man most of the time. But when I asked, I want to see what you really look like, because there were times that certain things would happen and he would start to fuzz out, and I could see that what I was seeing was not what he really was, that it was a screen almost in front of him. And I'm like, I have no problem with you. I'm not afraid of you. Why can't you just show me what you look like all the time instead of appearing this way? Because this is how we do it. Because you have to be comfortable. Because you're here to, help, and we have to show you this side. And, there were all these different reasons. I'm like, I'm okay with it, and
This is fascinating.
What size was he about?
Yeah.
Large, very tall, like maybe over 6 feet.
6.5 foot tall, right?
Really?
Maybe,
And
yeah.
did he have the same skeletal structure as we do?
Very
or
similar,
was it?
But it wasn't the same exactly. He was very well stocky kind of built, but in his natural form was different. He like the back of him, his spine and his back and his backside were all very different to ours. His legs looked like they were formed different and would bend slightly different to ours. Does that make sense?
So he wasn't perfectly upright walking, would you say?
Right.
No, he was perfect. Okay.
Right.
All right. So when was the last time that you have seen your handler?
It was about 2 years ago. He came back trying to get me to kind of come back into the program. That's what I call it. And, having gotten out of that, and I said, no, I'm not coming back into this. And it was an astral visit. It was but we're back in a very familiar place, and it's so hard to explain because you can still see and feel and experience all the same things.
I know it very well.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, okay, good. It's so nice to talk to people who know it, and I don't have to go down this road trying to explain all of that.
It's nice to be believed too, like when you talk to somebody.
It is, because a lot of this is just more than some people can imagine, but it's very true. I mean, these are
it
just.
Couldn't be weirder if we made it up, but it's
always in twilight for me. It's always it's not bright light, it's just always twilight.
It's always twilight.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's very dimly, darkly lit, and almost a blue, purple backlighting, and some areas it's more of a red backlighting. And we were in a cave type area of the underground where it seems so old. And I've been in this area many times. There were parts of this I was taken underground quite a bit. This area was seemed to me to be an ancient.
Me too,
part
actually.
Of it.
Yeah.
Like we could still see where it had to have been carved out of the rock, and it was cool, but it was things were carved into rock, like places to sit and places that were sunken down in, and in rooms just carved out of rock. It was wild.
Wow, that goes a long way backing up our theory, believe me.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, that's good. I love when that happens.
Well, that goes ding, ding, ding. So you were abducted by I also have found that they work together. The little grays and the tall grays and the reptilians, they all seem to work together. And did you find that the case too, right?
Oh, yeah, there were always different kinds there at the same time. I mean, I don't know if there are different factions who don't get along and don't work together. But when I was taken, because they don't share that kind of information with me, it would have been nice if they had explained a little more about what was going on.
Interview you, please, while you're taking your samples.
Right, that's what's missing. Yeah, but there were always grays and the reptilians or insectoids and the grays, the taller grays. They all have similarities where I felt like I could categorize them. This one looks more reptilian, this one looks more insectoid, this one looks more like a gray, but they cross over quite a bit too in their features.
Yeah. So, and they breed with us too, so they have these hybrids with us,
Right.
Which means they're very close to the human genome.
And since, of course, we only have the short time tonight, we wanted to make sure we got to the breeding program for sure, So please tell us basically how that started with you, and tell us all about it, if you don't mind.
And I'm not sure the first exact time, but I know the first time that I knew I was pregnant, and that it ended up being one of theirs, because I was married at the time, found out I was pregnant, was very excited, went to the doctor, had all the tests done. Then you had blood tests and things done. It was, I couldn't just go pull a a kid off a shelf at the store back then. Those were just starting to come out actually, because there came a time where I used those quite often. But this particular time, I'd been to the doctor, got my prescription for prenatal vitamins, felt pregnant, everything was moving along, heard heartbeat, that kind of thing. And it was about the end of the 3rd month when I woke up at night around 2 or 3 in the morning, the usual kind of time of night. And I had a lot of pain in my abdomen and I was spotting a little bit, but I had not lost anything. Nothing had come out of me, but the pain was intense. So we went to the emergency room and they couldn't find a heartbeat. So they did an ultrasound, which back then was a big deal. And I'm just terrified. I'm a very young woman, and had been so excited about this, and they didn't see a baby. So they said, well, did you lose this baby at home? And I said, no, nothing came out of me. And are you sure you're pregnant? Yes. Here's my doctor's information. You can call her. I have all the stuff. Brought my little folder with me, And so they were, we're going to have to do a D&C to find out what happened because we can't find anything on the ultrasound. So which was dangerous to do to a young woman also, so that, and I didn't know, and so they do a D&C and they came back and said, there was nothing. Your uterus was clean. There was nothing in your uterus.
Wow.
And
that's it.
That's the signature.
Yeah. It's like you were never pregnant, or it was just vacuumed out somehow,
Yeah.
It was more than that. It was taken out, so that it didn't look like you were ever pregnant.
Yeah.
Exactly. But they can't take the hormones, your body holds those hormones. They can't take those out of your blood right away.
I was going to ask you though, as far as the hormonal, changes that occur during pregnancy, did you, you were obviously pregnant and then you no longer have a fetus. How did your body physically respond to it hormonally?
Yeah. Before it was taken from me, which was just so traumatic because I didn't know what happened. I couldn't mourn that child. And then I later did get to see that child and hold that baby too.
Right.
But
okay.
At the time, during that pregnancy, I was extremely sick. I mean, very ill, like the worst stomach flu I've ever had ill. And that became a signature for some of the pregnancies I had with them as well. That didn't happen with my human natural children. I didn't get that level of sick.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So that became one of the tells for me, knowing that this was probably one of those pregnancies. I stopped going to the doctor too until I hit about, that 10-week period, because I knew it was going to be A, disappointing, or B, they were going to get this, what's she doing? I mean, I didn't want people to think I was doing something with these babies,
Right.
I mean, your brain goes all kinds of places. And I'm like, how do I hide what's happening to me? I can't talk about this. I can't tell anyone. Yeah. There's so many mixed up emotions and thoughts that you go through when this is happening. And it's just so traumatic. So
yeah, for our audience, obviously you're distinguishing between, a natural, baby through intercourse and a hybrid, or as we call our cousins, what we do.
We call them cousins.
Okay,
Yeah.
So your body obviously sounds like it was kind of partially rejecting that one. Okay,
yeah.
So do you have any vague or memories of like how you were fertilized?
Yeah.
To be gentle about it.
Yeah, I have a few memories of it, and I don't have memories of every time, but I do have some memories of them taking what looked like a very long silver-looking capsule and inserting that into my body to insert something into me. And at the time, I didn't realize what it was. I didn't understand exactly what they were doing, but based on where they put it and then what happened next, I'm guessing that was how they inserted the fertilized embryo.
Right. Sounds like an in vitro fertilization situation then.
Exactly. And all I remember is just seeing this very long, thin, cylindrical tube looking thing of some description. And obviously they're not walking me through the process. I don't have memories of them taking the fetus out. Probably because I wouldn't have let them touch me at that point, as a mother.
Yeah.
You get that serious mama bear, and I am very, very fiercely protective of my children. So Yeah. So, but that's all that I have as far as memories of that happening.
Yeah.
Do you ever remember sex with a hybrid or having sex to get pregnant this way?
Well, I don't know if the intercourse was to get pregnant, but I do, yes, have many memories of having encounters of that type and being forced to have encounters of that type. And
have sex. Yeah.
They can make you think and feel things that aren't real. So, one minute you're saying, there's no way, you're terrified and you're about to be raped or something horrible is going to happen. And the next minute, something else completely is in your head and you're feeling something different and you're experiencing something completely different. And they just have this ability to change what you're thinking and feeling in that moment. And so that's how, those things were able to happen. I'm just like, I don't like to think about those things because they're so traumatic, but it happened very often. Yeah, quite often.
I'm sorry to force you to go through this memory again, but
it's a part of it. It's important.
We walked down this memory lane ourselves.
You had that question too about after Area 51. That was the other question. It's about the Enoch or something like that.
Oh, what does ectogenesis mean?
Okay. Yeah. So that's just one of the ectogenesis is the ability to, we've got ectogenesis, and the other one I had on there beside that was the
panspermia. Know what that is? But ectogenesis was new to us.
Okay, yeah. Ectogenesis is really interesting because it really validates a lot of what's happened to some of us too. It's the ability to bring a fetus to term outside of a human mother's womb.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or any other
going on for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the artificial womb.
Fancy Latin name.
Yeah, but it's just an artificial womb, and I've seen them when I was taking these, tanks where those fetuses were in and floating and whatever. But I don't know what the liquid was that they were in. But we've
heard of those tanks
to do
before,
that. Yeah, it's like the walls.
Actually, I think ectogenesis is Greek, right? Genesis is Greek.
Yeah,
I think so.
It doesn't matter, but it's
no,
some
type of.
In other words, you've seen them in like artificial wombs where they have almost a placental type of barrier, and they can't make it too different from the human female. Otherwise, it would be rejected in some way.
I think that's why they take the placenta is to help with the ectogenesis process.
What's funny with a lot of them, I didn't see any kind of umbilical cord or placenta or anything like that in there either. Some of them were just free floating, which is interesting. So it's hard to, and it's really hard to focus and concentrate. Like when I was taking it, there's this, we call it UFO brain fog, where you're not thinking clearly. It's like thinking and walking through molasses. And I remember in that instance, trying so hard to focus on those tanks to just take in more information, details about what I was seeing in the tanks, and it was so hard to focus, but I wanted to remember more details about what was in these tanks.
I believe you're describing the Dulce, New Mexico,
or one of the areas.
Base. That base is carved out of rock. It's 7 levels underground, and the bottom 2 levels are supposed to be alien/U.S. military personnel, and a security guard that snuck down to the lower levels
and saw what you were describing.
Yeah, these tanks with these hybrid aliens floating in them. And of course, being an underground base, it's all carved out rock, like you're talking about.
Yeah, the Native American Indians have known about it for like over 1,000 years. They said, that's where it's.
So we think it might have been Dulce you were taken to, or something that's just like Dulce. Very similar.
Yeah, I think it's under our feet everywhere. I really do.
Yeah,
I mean, we know nothing about what's underground. Exactly.
I felt that as a kid in Woodland Hills. I was sure that they were underground, and I wasn't, necessary. But, I grew up in a family that we didn't talk about it very much, but we all knew about our family spirit guide.
Isn't that how it goes? You don't talk about it, but everyone knows about it. But it's
right.
Subject, that stigma is always there, keeping everyone from talking. They did a good job when, they started putting those stigmas in place, the 3-letter agencies and the other groups who did those things and helped really proliferate those thought processes among the people, because it really created an atmosphere where people don't feel safe talking about it. And
you're stigmatized.
Mm-hmm. And that breaks my heart, because I think,
half our family looks at us kind of side eye now, now that we've written a UFO book,
I know, right? But then I'm always surprised at how many people are, they're like, oh, what do you write? And I'm like, well, I write about the supernatural and UFOs. And most people are like, oh, wow. I really want to read that. Yeah. And I didn't expect that. I expected, oh, great. Yeah.
There's a lot of interest in the topic. That's for sure,
Well, yeah,
I mean, I wanted your take on what do the aliens want? What do you think their end game is?
And that's a great question. And I think everyone's going to have a different opinion on that one, because there's so many different things that I think they want, whether it's creating hybrid entities, whether it's, whether they want minerals and things from the earth. And there's so many different things that are true and do make sense. But in my opinion, because I do look at it from a biblical perspective. And I believe that these are another race of beings created by God, just like we were for his purposes, and that some of them rebelled and fell away. And the ones that rebelled and fell away, they are more interested in getting what we have here on earth, because if they were here before us, building the giant pyramids and the things that people can't explain. And they want it. I think they want this earth back. They want our birthright. They want it back, and I think that is a big part of their agenda, is to get people on board with their agenda and believing that there are ancestral seeders and, our benevolent space brothers. And I can't get behind that when little kids are being abducted, people are being raped, cattle are being mutilated, the things that are happening aren't benevolent.
It's not a pretty picture for sure.
No,
it's not a rosy picture of, people, like when I was a kid, I tell people I would have been the first person to hold up a sign saying, take me, if I saw a UFO, right? I wanted to go, but
not me.
But now that we've been researching the phenomenon, we don't recommend the experience, actually.
No,
it's
not,
it's funny that, the message that you get, like, sorry, go ahead.
What'd you say, Karen?
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that, I'm agreeing with you, but the message that we've been getting since at least 1945 is that, stop playing around with nukes and take better care of the planet.
Yeah, right. Seems to be their message when they get it across,
Especially because if they want this planet back, why would they be willing to watch us destroy something they want to get back? I mean, that would be not in their best interest. And I do get a lot of questions. How do you reconcile your faith with the fact that you now also believe in UAP, UFOs, and aliens? And my answer to that is, it's in my Christian Bible from Genesis to Revelation. It's all through there, but it's not what the mainstream churches want to teach. So when you go up to someone and say, oh, I'm a Christian, they're like, oh, great. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's not just this boring person sitting in a pew and, praying and something. There's so much amazing, fascinating, cool, interesting stuff in there. And you've got like the books of Enoch and Jasher and all these extra canonical books that got thrown out by people who decided what we were going to be allowed to read and what we weren't, and so there's so much out there that talks about who and what these things are. And there's so much in the Bible. So I don't write my book from a religious perspective. I write it from a biblical perspective, where I provide historical data as to what I have found that explains them. And it just offers another perspective, because I don't ever want to push my belief system on anyone. I just want to share what I know. And I think that other people have a lot to share with me that I don't know. So I'm always open to learn more.
I wanted to ask, we believe that the myth of the incubus, the succubus, the vampire, the vampire mythos, and to a certain extent Satan as well. I think this all stems from the alien abduction phenomenon. We think they've been doing it for thousands of years, so it goes back a really long time.
They have several commonalities. They come at night. They're very powerful. They paralyze you. They tamper with your memory. They can change form. They take blood
They come back to the same person again and again.
They visit the
You just said they come out at night. This is a book called They Only Come Out at Night by Vicki Joy Anderson, and she talks about exactly what you're just talking about there, and not exactly the same thing, but you can call it what you want. There's rebranding of it. You can call them aliens, you can call them whatever,
right?
But we're talking about the same things. There's
that's our point.
And and I love that you get that, because a lot of times I have to explain it. But again, it's another amazing. I love this conversation because you guys already understand and know all these things.
Yeah, I figured that out a while ago.
I will ever know,
and we've been training our audience well. I believe they're out there going, "Yep, we've heard this from Leslie and Steve already."
Yeah, right. No, you guys are on it and you understand it so well, and there just aren't a lot of people who do, and that's what's unfortunate.
Right.
So it's great that you're sharing this information.
Experiencing is believing. Stephen, when we got married, he was telling me all these bizarre experiences from his youth, and I had seen nothing weird like that had ever happened to me, and I could only believe him about 98%. I'm a dutiful wife. I wanted to believe my husband, but I could only get there about 98%. And then one day there it was. I saw my first UFO, and it couldn't be anything but a UFO because it moved at 20,000 miles an hour from a dead stop.
We were together. So we both saw it.
That was the life-changing. It's always a life-changing moment,
isn't it? It's always life-changing. People say when they've seen one, it changes how they perceive the world, because I think as a society, most humans think I'm the apex predator and there's nothing but this earth and we're all that there is. And then you realize, oh no, we're a little tiny drop in a vast ocean. And if we don't understand that and humble ourselves, we're going for a big surprise when they show up.
Right.
Because we're not going to know what to do. And it's amazing when you have that life-changing experience, and finally, for people who have never seen or experienced them, finally do. And then you hunger for more, because you want to know more about them, because you're like, wow, it opens another world. It opens a whole new chapter for people. And that's why sharing your book, sharing my book, sharing the way things that we do is so important. At first, people will look at it like, oh, it's so woo. Why would you listen to that? And then once people do listen to it, they realize, wow, there's so much more I want to know. And it opens new doors for people to experience and learn. And I think it's amazing and fascinating.
In fact, the very reason why we named our show Abductions 101, UFOs and the Paranormal Connection, is because we find that, certainly with myself, it's not just been UFOs, it's been the paranormal, especially throughout my life since the age of 3, and my family. So there's misidentification for one thing, but as far as like the communication, they certainly use different ways of communicating that.
The astral visits, as you called it.
Yes, astral visits and different frequencies and such as that. And they certainly use telepathy. And, what I found in my studies for sure is that telepathy is actually the most basic form of communication. That we have that, we can be taught that easily when we're children, when we're infants. It's the part of the brain that it's like, I call it like the appendix of the brain. As far as the way that most people use it, it's basically like, it's there. We don't really know what it does, but sometimes you can use it, or sometimes it has a function. We know, like what we're doing right now is like 5 or 6 steps away from telepathy. We have to use symbolic language and letters and it's like all this stuff we have to do and then also too, like with your visits, the entities, they don't have to speak 10,000 different languages, because all they have to do is communicate via neural and chemical pathways, creating emotion with information, and that's how we absorb stuff anyway.
Exactly.
In our theories, Karin, we believe that the aliens abducting us and flying UFOs in our skies are actually a breakaway branch of the human race that split away from us thousands of years ago.
12,850.
850 to be exact, because we think the Younger Dryas comet impact of 12,850 years ago caused the race to separate. And the ones that were left behind, we all just got our butts kicked, and we ended up back in the Stone Age. Had to regrow back a society from the Stone Age, and
Yeah.
But our cousins who escaped the cataclysm with their technology intact, that's why they're like 12,000 years ahead of us in technology. Okay. And because they're cousins to us, we think that's why they can breed with us relatively easily, you know.
And why they need us too still.
Yeah, we think they may be getting more less viable as they spend their lives in space or underground, and
as we detonate nuclear bombs.
Yeah, and we maybe think that maybe that's why they're taking people's DNA from the surface,
and all the cow's blood and things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the cattle blood is definitely, and I agree with you. I think we're saying almost the same thing with just the slightest difference. Where I think it's also a race that was here before we were in that younger dryas period, before that ice age, and if people are paying attention, we're probably coming up on the next one, because that 12,000 years is the cycle. But most people don't pay attention to that or the other important things. But I know you guys probably do.
Precession, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. When you see all this, people are like global warming, global cooling. I'm like, it's a cycle, but okay. But we do have to take care of our planet. We have to be good stewards of our planet. We don't want to blow
for
it up.
children, you know, just so we don't turn it into a toxic, cesspool or something, you know. But I agree too, of course.
I think there are, I call them our elder race and elder brothers or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that God created a different race before us that were here before us. And, I think when they messed up and then everything got thrown back into the Stone Age, he put us here and said, okay, I'm going to let these guys try and see how they do, and they want it back. I really think that they do. So I think we're saying we're in a really similar
they have to be, physiologically, they have to be 99.97 almost the same as far as to be able to breed with us. So they have to be,
real
they have
similar.
to be, otherwise you're breeding basically mules.
Exactly,
that's,
right. And then I don't think they're from Alpha Centauri or
no, they're not.
No, we don't think so either.
B24C or whatever planet they found that could inhabit. I think they're
Pyceon,
from right here.
We show evidence of them here thousands of years,
I mean, I've been taken up in the air, but I don't have memories of going to another planet. Now, I'm sure that they implant memories like that for people and put that out there to kind of disguise themselves and to be able to keep doing the things they want to do.
Sure.
That's what we think too. Yeah. And they've been playing gods for thousands of years. And now I think they're playing space aliens. They're playing, to kind of fool us. That's what the government is
keep us looking up instead of looking down.
Yeah, under our feet where we think they're actually hiding.
It's the simplest thing.
Agree. Exactly.
Simplest
it's like they're right in front of our faces, but no one's looking. And in school, we're taught, here's what the Earth's made up. You have a crust and a this and a that and a core and all these things. I'm like, how do you know? They've only drilled down 8 miles into the surface of the Earth. They don't even know what's down there.
South Africa, something like that.
Yeah, the crust is it's like a Swiss cheese because of the way lava tubes work.
Exactly.
As a liquid, as it drains out of a cavern, it leaves this giant cavern. There's all kinds of stuff like that under the earth.
Right.
Yeah. And all over the world, there's constantly discoveries of, this farmer found this giant cavern in his field in Asia, and it's big enough to house New York City. But no one pays attention to those things.
In China, that underground city essentially, and Darren Kuyu is another example.
Darren Kuyu,
We think that almost all these flood myths,
they start the same.
Yeah, there's 1,200 separate cultures that have this like a flood myth in their most lore, and they all start out with that they were warned in advance that some horrible flood was coming. Either God warned them, or an emissary of God, or somehow they disembodied voice warned them that the horrible flood is coming. So
and the waters come up from the ground.
It was a shared phenomenon. Right.
Yeah, and there wasn't rain before most of the flood myths. It was only water coming up from the ground at that point, and that these societies were extremely advanced at that point. I think they make us look like kindergartners in a school full of PhDs if you go back to how it was before.
Yeah, we think they were more advanced than we are now, but we don't know how far because the comet essentially wiped all the evidence off the
we know for sure they were able to manipulate rock
Oh,
better
yes,
than we
because look
can.
at what
Lot
they
better.
did. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, these laser cuts in the stone. And so when people have a hard time believing the things we talk about, I'm like, just the evidence is still there for
Yeah.
many of these things like you talk about, but it's hard
Just
for
look
people
up,
to understand.
Puma Punko or Saxuaman,
Saxuaman,
just
yeah.
for a couple,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We do
Go
look
back
at
to Tepe and
like the first
yeah, the
half of
Tepes. There's several of them, right?
Oops, sorry. Sorry. The first half of our book is about what we think caused the schism between us about 12,800 years ago. But the second half, we go into the whole Anunnaki and Sumerian thing, and I saw a lot of like the Sumerians have earlier versions of a lot of our Bible stories. You know what I mean? They have an ancient version of the
Tower of Babel,
the Tower of Babel, and then they have an ancient version
Garden of Eden,
the expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, and
exactly
the Noah thing, the whole Noah flood thing. And I think that the whole. I think that's where we also get our mythos for Satan, because the Anunnaki, they were a pantheon of gods, right? But the two main ones, but the two main ones are these brothers that were always Enki and Enlil. And we think, and Enki is the one that was supposed to have warned all the people of the world that the flood was coming, and Enlil was just happy to let us all die and be rid of us, right? And he warned the people, and a lot of them saved themselves. He said, "Build an ark," and so everybody built an ark.
Or go to high ground, or dig underground,
or whatever, And so the survivors of the flood, supposedly Enlil made peace with them on the mountain of Ararat and gave us gifts of animals, that had been genetically modified, so they would be malleable and easy to breed and easy to get along with.
And grains too, right?
And super processed grains that would grow easy and high yield grains and stuff. These gifts supposedly, and then. But Enki didn't get off easy. We think he was kicked out of
Eden,
the society of gods, so to speak, and the pantheon of gods. He was kicked out, and maybe that's who's living under our crust is these Anunnaki beings that are running the show underground,
or the hybrids that we call them Nordics now, of course, that look like
hybrids
tall Swedes. Actually, statistically, 52% of the sightings are actually Nordics.
Yeah, they're actually more seen than any other alien.
Right.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because I know for a while people thought that it was a screen memory, and then there's just been too many common sightings of them for that to fly, and they realized no, it can't be. It's got to be an actual entity, and too many of us saw them. When I was little, I wouldn't go to the family member. I remember being 2-3 years old and them trying to hand me off to my cousins. My dad's sister was much older than him, and so I had cousins who were like 18 when I was 2 and 3 years old, and I wouldn't go to them. They were tall and blonde and fair-haired and fair-haired, fair-eyed, fair-skinned, and they reminded me of the Nordics that I was already scared of because they were, there when I was being taken. So I wouldn't go to anyone on that side of the family who looked anything like them. And people were like, "Oh, do you think your family was hybrid?" I'm like, "No, they were just Germanic," and but they now
we're not so sure, huh?
But being tall and that's intimidating just by itself,
right? But they had a similar features, and little kids are easily pick up on those things, and because it's more instinctual when you're that little than it is logical. So the same way little children will back away from a picture of a rattlesnake before they know what one is, but they'll reach out for a teddy bear before they know what one is. There is a lot of just
genetic memory, so to speak.
It's just put into us. We're born with it. We're born knowing to be afraid of some things and not of others. And so when you feel that fear and you're like, "Oh yeah, I just had that feeling," that you got to pay attention to those things, because I really believe that you got to pay attention when you feel If you feel scared or you feel like, oh, I feel like that's okay, test it out. I'm not saying just go pick up something because you don't think it's dangerous, but, test it out, because you have to trust some of those instincts that you feel, because they're there for a reason, But
Karen, I forgot to tell you that we need to take a break.
Oh my God! We do.
We have an actual sponsor.
We'll just take one. We'll take one this time.
We have to just go silent for them for about 10 seconds. So
Okay.
Shh, everybody. Hi, I'm Leslie Shaw, and I'm here to tell you about the incident that happened. My husband and I got married on my birthday, so we were celebrating both my birthday and our anniversary camping at Whitewater Campground. And the bank called me and said, "Are you spending all your money in a Texas Walmart right now?" And it's like, oh, no, we are not. And they had drained everything out of our account but 86 cents. That's all we had. And at the time, that was our only bank account. And so we were kind of stuck. And fortunately, the bank was great. And they said that they would refund it, our money, between 5 and 9 business days later. So I was trying to figure out what to feed us for that time period. So I remember opening the pantry going, what am I going to make? And then I'm a stained glass artist, and I had several pieces in a gallery at the time, and one of them sold, and we just got lucky. And I remember it was almost $300, and we were able to go grocery shopping with it, and at least feed us for the week it took. And the bank was great. It only took the 5 days, and we didn't have to wait the whole 9. But I would rather it didn't have to happen at all. And we're back. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Karen. Sorry about that. We forgot to tell you before we got started.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting about the instinctual memory. I have a very strong remembrance of when we were at the Yucca Valley house, and we had these 2 standard poodles, 2 females, right? And I went out in the mid-morning, and there was this large local snake that was just going by the house, that was like by the back door, and it was maybe about 6 foot long. It was like a boa or something like that.
No, it was the
shovel nose.
The gopher snake.
Gopher snake, right? Mm-hmm. It was pretty big, right? And both the dogs were just like watching it, and they knew not to bother it. They just had this instinctual thing that, oh, we don't mess with that because it might be poisonous. And they were never taught that.
And we have it
instinctual,
too. We have it too. I remember camping one time, and I was collecting firewood, and I had this bizarre epiphany, this powerful feeling that I had been doing this for millions of years, that this was something that was just ingrained into our
DNA.
DNA somehow, Now, before my audience will never forgive us if we let you get away without telling us more about the time where you actually were able to meet your. First of all, how many times did you have a pregnancy that you felt was one of these situations?
I never even kept count. 3 times I went to the doctor with them, and went to the hospital, and did those kinds of things. After that, I didn't even keep count anymore because it was just so often.
Wow.
So even after I had my
7 times?
I'm sorry?
So it could be 7 or 10 or 20?
Oh, yeah, easily a dozen times. It could easily have been a dozen times. Even after I literally got my tubes tied because I thought that would stop it, and it didn't.
Really?
Yeah. So
no, because you still got eggs being produced.
I still have eggs, yeah. I mean, it was kind of stupid. I wasn't, I thought, oh, this will stop it. No, I'm still making eggs, So I was still extremely fertile at that point. So and I'm Rh negative, which makes me more fertile, So.
Also more desirable.
Yeah, we found 4 out of 10 abductees are Rh negative.
Yeah.
And only 1 out of 9 of us are in the population. So it's actually one of the things we think they target somehow.
And also Caucasians too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because people are like, oh, isn't O negative the most rare blood type? I'm like, no, it's actually AB.
No, it's the universal donor.
Yeah, it's just a universal donor. But Rh negative is rare. That's only 15% of the global population. And
Oh, I thought it was like 9%, but still,
actually,
yeah,
it is 8 or 9%. You're right. I'm sorry. O negative is yeah. But
it's not.
anyway.
So it's not a common, but 1 out
It's
of
not
4
common.
abductees have it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that are taken are Basque. The Basque population of Europe, you know, they seem to be taken a lot, and they have the highest incidence of Rh negative in their blood of any population. And so we don't know if they're taking more Basques because they're after Rh negative, or if they're after Rh negative and therefore taking more Basques. We're not really sure which way is the.
And they have an interesting history in the Basque and their history, and then their ancestral history is that before them, they're largely Catholic, but before they went into their into that, and before they were there, that their history is that there were giants like Nephilim in their land, and that they were actually relegated into the hills and the caves at some point, and then they took over. My thoughts on RH, I'm actually writing a big part of that in my next book, so I've got a considerable amount of information on that. But I do think that, you know, for people to understand, they call it RH after the rhesus monkey, not because we have monkeys, but because the rhesus monkey has a similar thing where some of them have this protein coating on the outside of the cell.
It's the antigens, whether you have the antigens or not the antigens.
And we have some cells with some of us have the antigens and some of us don't, but they're not the same as the rhesus monkey's antigens. Just how the gentleman found it, you know, how he discovered it after he did all the blood typing. But anyway, but I think that it was removed from the cells purposely so that they could try to mate again. I do think that was done purposely. I think it was purpose done so that it gave them a better opportunity to try to create hybrids again. Just because when that's not on the cell, then you've got that blood that's not going to be rejected.
Right.
And now an Rh negative can't mate with an Rh positive without that fetus being rejected. But also at the same time, that's not a problem if they're taking that fetus at 3 months. Because that's about the time your body is going to reject it anyway.
Right.
So, you know, that's
not a problem anyway.
Right.
You know?
But because it's a universal donor and, you know, that blood can be used for it, then that makes it easier to work on creating hybrids with those of us that do have that RH, that don't have that.
And you were able to meet your, one of your hybrid babies, right?
Yeah. So one time I was taken and the gray it was one that seemed to be a female, because it had that just female quality about it. And we're going down this hallway that is just lined with these tanks that have, again, these things that look like fetuses in them at different stages. And it was very like red backlit. And I don't want to say that the liquid in the tanks was red, because I think it was the lighting that made it look red, but it's hard to say. At the end of this hallway where the tanks stopped and the hallway went on, there was a door on either side, and they opened the door to the right, and it was the size of a large closet, not an overly large closet, but just a good size. And there was a woman in there. She was laying on the floor and she was imitating childbirth, which I was just like, in my mind, I'm thinking, what is she doing? It just seemed wrong what she was doing, the way, you know, but I quickly was redirected because they handed me this little baby, and it was very small and very compact, like I just remember thinking how compact it was. It was kind of a purplish red in color. And I remember looking at it and thinking, I know this is my baby. I can just see it. I can feel it. You know, that mother scent. I knew it was my baby, but it didn't look human, not fully human. And they're like, hold your baby. This is a good baby. And so I remember holding it up to me, and specifically just up to my skin, and it wouldn't cuddle into me. And that was the weirdest thing. I could not get this baby to respond. And I kept looking at it going, what's wrong with my baby? You know, and I'm looking at them. There's more than one of these entities there. I'm saying, what's wrong with my baby? You know, now I'm calling it my baby now. And I'm like, what's wrong with my baby? It won't respond to me, you know, and I'm getting really upset. And then I'm thinking, I'm going to take this baby home. I remember distinctly thinking this, I'm going to take it home and I'm going to fix it. You know, I'm a mom. I can do this. I can make it better.
And they're like, no, it's coming with us.
Right? Yeah, they're not having that. And I'm like, no, I'm taking this baby home. And they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, oh, yes.
No.
And there's no arguing with them. At that point, I'm put into, the next thing I know, I wake up, I'm back in my bed.
Yeah, then knock you out. That's their solution to it.
So you must have some ideas or feelings or thoughts as far as like their possible ultimate agenda, the reason why they're doing this in the first place.
Yeah, are they infiltrating us? That's what I kind of think is they're trying to infiltrate us.
I think it is. I think it's if you look at it from a biblical perspective, a third of the angelic beings fell. The B'nai Ha-Elohim, the sons of God, the council of Elohim, whatever they want to call them. There, at one time, a third of them fell. Then we also have others that fell. That in Genesis 6, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and made wives of them, all that they chose, and they had the Nephilim, the Gibborim, the mighty men of old, the giants of those days. So they were mating back then, and I think they're trying to do that.
Creating these weird, stupid, obnoxious giants.
They were definitely
some of them were, but some were brilliant, some were kind, some were mean. There's so many different stories about them. So, but they weren't good. I mean, they were eating everything in sight, and then they started eating the people, and then
they were cannibals. In some cases,
So, exactly. You look at the Kandahar giant. I think they're still out there today. But so I really think the late there's a couple of different theories. I think the late Dr. Chuck Missler said Satan's outnumbered 2-1. He's building an army, and he's talking about the angelic beings who fell. And I know Satan's kind of a misnomer, so I don't like to, but still, I agree with that. I think that there's this drive to get the planet back, to take this birthright and get that we have now and get it back. Because they don't like how we're managing it. They don't like our how that we got the nuclear weapons or bristling with weapons and polluting the world. And we've broken some food chains.
I always like to remind our audience too that the 7 deadly sins, greed, gluttony, lust, vanity, pride, wrath, and sloth, they didn't just come from nowhere. Okay,
right?
We have that in spades, and we still do.
Yeah.
And so these are all things that we need to deal with if we're going to, let's say, in a Christian or a biblical sense, or definitely a spiritual sense, to ascend and to, get ourselves away from the shackles of being here on the earth. Right. But it's, this whole thing that we have this stuff and we do it all the time, it's just, it's part of our DNA. Unfortunately,
I think the story of Enoch in Enoch about the Watchers coming back and coming to Earth, that reminded me of a lot of the end of a lot of these flood myths is also that they almost all end the same way, where humanity was dying out. The flood was just too devastating for us. There were just little pockets of population centers left, and these were degrading into barbarism and cannibalism, and it looked like the human race was going to fail, that we were going to be wiped out, when God sent us all these emissaries. And we think this happened about 5,000 years ago, because the pyramid building culture in Peru is they finally dated the pyramids to 5,000 years ago, so they're definitely not Incan build.
You mean Caracol?
Caracol. And
but so do we know if, what part of it did they date too? Because, how much work has been redone on them and redone. How old could they possibly be? They still could be 12,000 years old. They could have been from, before the
prior to the flood even.
Yeah, the Sphinx could be from 10,500. The Göbekli Tepe is from over 12,000,
Exactly.
I like Sitchin dates the Great Pyramid of Giza complex at 10,000 years old ago.
That's
so what we think this means is that our cousins who didn't lose their culture or technology, I think they took pity on us and sent emissaries back to our,
the surface,
our different population bases, and re-civilized us. They talk about giving us back animal husbandry and math and architecture and re-civilizing us, and then disappeared again. So we think they just kind of They came back, they shared their magnificent technology with us for 1,000 years or so, and built all this stuff that can in no way be explained by that.
Right.
It cannot be built by the people to whom they're being attributed. There's no way, right?
We can't even build most of that today. That's what.
Yeah.
That's right.
People think, oh yeah, it was just I'm like, no, we still can't build that.
A lot of people are being as you want to go to Florida. When you go to Florida, go see the Coral Castle.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Have you
been there?
Oh, jealous. We're so jealous.
Yeah. And that's how he did everything at night. And I'm like, to me, it's fairly obvious. He had help. He was working with them. And so, when I'm there, of course, I can't talk to everyone about the things I know, but I'm like, this is just, we think we know all the scientific answers and what Dr. David Jacobs calls future physics, because we haven't caught up to it yet. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I witnessed so many things like that in my life. So for me, walking through there, I'm like, I could totally see how he did it and how it happened. And I loved it. It was really fascinating and interesting to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also understand why he wouldn't marry the woman that he loved, because he knew that it would be too overwhelming for her to understand the beings that he was in contact with and communion with, and he didn't want to put her in that. And having been around that, I'm like, oh, he loved her enough to keep her from that, so that she wouldn't have to try to reconcile what he understood. He knew was more than she was going to be able to handle.
I saw that documentary of my
love story.
Fascinating take on it. I hadn't thought of that, but it certainly could be the case.
Yeah, my dad and I saw the documentary when it first came out in '79, and he said, I know how the Egyptians built the pyramids, and I'm not going to give that information to man, because mankind is not ready for it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I should watch it. I think that'd be fascinating. But I really did enjoy going there and just witnessing and seeing, and the work that he did is still just as fresh today as when he did it, except for people trying to mess with it. But for the most part, like the door that just swings, because it's balanced properly between the giant stone that just swings like a swinging door. And it's balanced perfectly between
2.5 tons.
With one finger, you can just push it.
Yeah, exactly. And the rocking chair that almost rocks. You start it rocking, it almost is, perpetual motion almost.
Going,
Exactly. Everything is so beautiful that he built. And, he did everything. There's no evil, no evil intent. It was just all beautiful and lovely. And if people could see that as a way to understand, look, we're not the apex predator here. We have a creator, we have a higher power, whatever you want to call him, however you want to address him, that's fine. Just understand that, there's a lot more to life than just what people seem to think is, like you said, those 7 deadly sins. Right. That's a big deal, because people get really caught up in themselves and just the selfishness of it, instead of realizing there's so much to learn and to share, and we have just so much love that we can give to one another, and people. And
our government definitely does not want us to know that they are not the main power.
One thing that
desperate to keep it from us.
Yeah, Leslie, I want to the whole term like apex combined with predator. Mm-hmm. It's really kind of, especially in the United States, how we kind of see ourselves, that, we're apex and we're also predators. In other words, we're like, badasses,
USA in charge.
It's like, it's such a bad way of psychologically seeing us. It is. It's so detrimental to our expansion.
What must other countries think of us? They must think we're a bunch of jerks,
we're a bunch of WWF guys over here.
Oh, yeah.
They're taking purple pills,
exactly. That's what they think, that we just, we see it and we want it and we take it. And I think that's unfortunate. And instead of just being kind to one another, loving, just kind of sharing the good. I know. And let's just find the good.
Why can't it be about love once in a while?
Why can't it be about
war
understanding?
Makes money. Love doesn't make money. War makes money, and governments like to make money.
No, sex sells.
Yeah, sex
love
sells.
Doesn't.
War makes money. Yeah, so and it's part of, again, we're back in those 7 deadly sins. We're back in greed and lust.
Exactly. It's our big stumbling block. It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? And it's made to look so enticing, but they say Satan comes as an angel of light, and that's just another one of many different things that sound like that makes sense. It comes in a beautiful package, but it doesn't mean that it's what's in there is going to be beautiful.
No, it's horrible.
You know? And so the more we just dig it down through these layers and share these truths with each other, the better chance we're going to have at just having a harmonious future together, you know, in this life or when we go on from here, you know, and we do go on from this life. There is more than what we have here. And I've had a near-death experience. I've experienced outside of my body. I've had that near-death experience, and I call it my near-life experience because it was closer to life than death. It was beautiful and amazing.
What happened exactly?
I was, and this will be about the last one I have time for, I think, because I'm gonna.
Yeah. Let's make it start.
I'm sorry, because my pain. I'm sorry, y'all, but my pain level is getting to that point. But was going in for a surgery. Yeah, I was going in for a surgery, and I was in the operating room, but I wasn't hooked up to anything yet. I just had IV ports in. And sorry, my dog just walked in the room. She's found me, so I wasn't hooked, and it's unusual that I was taken into the operating room before I was hooked up to anything, and they weren't quite ready. So I'm laying there, and a woman comes in, white lab coat. She leans over me. She's got a pocket full of syringes, and I thought she was an anesthesiologist. And she takes one of them out, and I thought she was giving me a sedative, and she pushes it into my IV port and turns around and walks away. I never saw her again. And she gave me a paralytic. And there was no one watching me, and there was no one around, and my body just felt like it turned to cement. It was horrifying, especially for someone who's had sleep paralysis and all those things when I've been taken. If you're going to take me out on purpose, which I think that might have been what was happening there, that's
what
the worst
was it, like succinylcholine or something?
It's a paralytic,
Yeah, I don't.
Succinylcholine?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact, the name for it, but yeah, it was a paralytic, so I couldn't breathe. I couldn't signal for help.
One of those murder nurses went through your hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was a hit. Just because I've been warned not to do things like this. I've had attempts, and the nice thing is now that disclosure is happening, or little bits of it, I'm not seeing that anymore. So I pray that's the case, because I've got another surgery coming up. But I am a lot more careful with making sure I'm never alone in the
for sure.
I always have at least one nurse or orderly who I already know. That I can trust, because it is a very scary thing that happened.
Otherwise it's too easy. Yeah.
It's very
How did you survive?
There were two nurses in there who were just getting some things ready for the surgery, and one of them happened to look over and said, is she okay? And at this point I've died. I'm going, oh God, help me. And I hear an audible voice in my head say, it's okay, you can let go now. And like that, I'm out of my body, but I'm really close to my body. I know everything I need to know in that instant. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not sad or scared or worried. I'm just right there. And I know I'm going to be going back into my body. Everything I need to know, I know. All I felt was just incredible love and peace. The most unbelievable love and peace.
That's the common thing.
Yeah. No way to even describe it, because we don't have that. And
I know it's like love in every cell of your body or something.
It was crazy. It's like just being wrapped in the warmest, most comfortable blanket, and what struck me the most, the thing that really struck me, I was still me, my personality, that, not the way we look or walk or dress or anything, like the me inside was still there. And I'm just like, folks, get right with yourself, get right with your creator, because you do go on from here, and make sure you're comfortable, like yourself, be comfortable with yourself, because this is it. You go on. No.
That's when I realized I had a soul, when I started astral projecting. I said, oh, I do have a soul. I know it's separating from my body and traveling places,
That's when you know that because it's so unique to you, and you always thought, just personality, your personality, that's your soul, that's part of your soul.
It's a comfort to know we have them,
isn't it? And that you go on here, and it's beautiful, and it's just love. And anyway, it just, it was the most incredible experience. Going back into my physical body was horrible. I write all about this in the book too, because it was a good experience, but then going back in was like diving into the nasty old trash heap, and every time for 4 hours in recovery. They couldn't get me out of. Every time they bring me out of anesthesia, I would be screaming and just scream. And they thought I was going to have a heart attack or a stroke.
Whoa.
Well, I had actually had a
Just
stroke.
put your back under,
They had to keep. That's what they did, and
knock
I
her
did
back out. Yeah.
right, knock her back out. And I did end up having a stroke during the first part of it. But I remember coming out to about 3.5 hours into that, going, God help me, how do I get back into this body? And all of a sudden, there were two handsome young orderlies standing at the foot of the bed. And I remember looking at them saying, you guys look like you could be two of my boys. They're the same age as some of my sons. And they were so sweet and kind and loving. And they helped me through. And all of a sudden, I didn't care about the pain. I didn't care about that. They just brought love and light, happiness, and just beauty back into the room. And suddenly I was okay. And we're going up through the elevator, down the hall, to the room in ICU where I was going, and my husband and daughter-in-law were there. They were always the two that I wanted there. And I remember grabbing their hands and saying, you've got to meet the boys. I would not have made it out of recovery because they were worried.
They're not there.
Then they're not there, right? And I usually recovery is about an hour, half hour, 4 hours. They were terrified what was going on. And I'm like, oh, they're so sweet. And then they're gone. And I look at the nurse and the orderly who are up near the front of the bed. And I said, what happened to the boys? And she's like, what boys, honey? I'm like, the boys, the young orderlies, I was talking to them all the way up here. She's like, oh, we wondered who you were talking to. We just thought you were a little delirious, honey. I remember her saying it. I'm like, no, they're gone. They were so,
oh, no.
When we have more time, I'll tell you how I know that there definitely is, an afterlife.
Well, we found another time together because I would love to continue our conversation. You guys are fascinating, and I could talk to the two of you all day. And can we please schedule a part 2 or 3 or 4, whatever? I'll talk to you guys as long as you want because I'm enjoying this so much.
Sure, definitely.
Okay.
So take care of yourself.
But let's cut you free. But
first, also plug your book.
Yeah, but first tell people where they can find your book and any other things you've got coming up that you want people to know about.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, you can, if you want to reach out to me, go to my website, KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. It's there on the screen. And that's the best way to get a hold of me. If you just want to share your story, know you're not alone. You can email me. I won't share your story with anyone. It's just between us. I'm not a counselor or therapist. I'm just a person who's been through it too. And so if you try to reach out, I am on social media, but those messages are so hard to get through. So email me, and I would, and I'll return your email. Just if you've tried to email me and you haven't gotten through, please try again. Email's not perfect. Sometimes they do get lost.
Sure.
So, but please reach out to me that way if you want to find me. You can also find links for how to get the book there. And you can find it at lamarzulli.com as well. But yeah, if you're out there and you feel alone and you've had these experiences, you don't have to be alone. Yeah. There are so many of us who have done this, and there is a lot of love out there for every single one of you. So please don't give up on finding your people and finding people you have something in common with. It will help you so much. And if not me, you've got Leslie and Steven here, and just find someone who will understand, and because you're not alone, and it's okay. We believe you, I believe you. And even if no one else does, I will. So please
tell them the name of the book again one more time.
The book is Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, and it is just an account of my experiences. And it's not all scary or dark or anything like that. There's a lot of really positive, good, and light in there, because I think it's important that we share the love, we share the light, and we share the good things that have happened to us as well, and really try to keep that balance in there. So I try to share a lot of different things in there, and just what happened to me. It's just kind of my story. So
again, for audience, it's Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest by Karin Wilkinson.
Yes, and thank you,
Karin
guys.
with an I.
Karin with an I. I'm one of the good ones. Karin with an I.
And my sister's the regular Karin, and she's a a part-time ghost hunter now up in northern England.
She's a good one too. Oh, good.
Visiting haunted castles and Scottish castles. That sounds so cool.
Oh, that sounds like good. It's a fun adventure. Yeah, I love the castles over there. Oh my gosh. But thank you guys so much. It's been such an honor and a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on.
You too.
Yeah.
You have a blessed night.
Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself, and namaste.
Good night, everyone.
God bless you.